Welcome everybody, it's another Voice of Nick show. This time we're going to be doing something a little different than we've done so far. You've seen me edit audio, you've seen me narrate the audio book for Posthomerica, but this time we're going to be doing what I do before every chapter, which is sort of the practice run for the narration. So this involves me doing narrating through for the first time and sort of working out the character motivations and voices and tempo and stuff for the chapter, and also accruing all of the. Sometimes I write out little phonetic versions of sections if they have a lot of names and stuff that I need to get right. So we're going to do all that stuff on here. It's going to be only big screen ahead as I do this, because the book, you guys will be able to buy the book yourselves when it comes out, but we're not going to broadcast necessarily the entire full screen text or other aspects. You'll get a bit of a look into how I prep for this. Comments are disabled on here, and I won't be responding to any of those, but I hope you enjoy the show, and let's do it. So first we're going to listen to our previous chapters. I always try to get a feel for it.
Book 1.
Book 1.
How died for Troy,
the Queen of the Amazons,
Penthesilea.
I always do this where I make reference files for myself, and also I try to follow previous chapters and match the exact tone so I don't deviate.
Book 8.
Book 8.
How Hercules'
grandson perished in fight
with the son of
Achilles.
Fight. So cried he.
No respite had there been.
Yea,
For a long time, no respite. You can see the difference between the edited audio, or this is unedited audio, and this is edited audio. So it's like very clearly, this is all wild and untamed audio. There's a lot of work that goes into the post-production. So this is a chapter about how the Trojan horse is made, which is, I'm sure anybody watching this would know of that particular event in the Trojan War, so you'll learn a little bit about how this stuff works, or how they came up with the plan and all that. Book 12. How the wooden horse was fashioned and brought into Troy by her people. When round the walls of Troy the Danaan host had borne much travail, and yet the end was not. By Calchas then assembled were the chiefs, for his heart was instructed by the hests of Phoebus, by the flights of birds, the stars, and all the signs that speak to men the will of heaven, so he to that assembly cried. So now we have to check if we even have a reference file for Calchas. We don't. Okay, so now we got to go through a bit of a process here where I keep notes on every first appearance of a character. Apparently Calchas shows up in book 6 for the first time, so we're going to go find his the chapter where he appears, and we're going to create a reference file for him. And what that is basically a couple of lines where his character talks, where I can actually read it back or listen back to it and match the voice, because of course I'm not going to remember what I did at the beginning of the book once I'm at the end. So instead I just make these reference files. I forget when Calchas speaks, but we can. Okay, this is Priam talking. Tydides. It's Diomedes. Thestor's son. Who's Thestor's son? Calchas. Okay. And where is this? Like 2 pages in? Okay, yeah. That means it'll be pretty close to the beginning.
Holding strivings, struggles of despair.
Struggles of despair. Takes a long time to search the document because it's so long. Okay, so this is what This is Menelaus talking here.
This the gods are even now fulfilling.
This part's a little tedious in the process, but it really makes a difference. The gods are even now fulfilling, yeah. This is Thestor's son. Okay, so this is where Calchas talks. Hold on, we gotta also... Good.
You know I have the spirit of prophecy. Erewhile I said that ye in the 10th year should lay... Stood forth and cried, Hear me, ye sons of battle-biding Greece.
Okay, so this, we're making now a reference file for Calchas.
Hear me,
ye
sons of
battle-biding Greeks.
You know I have the spirit of
prophecy.
Erewhile I said that ye in the 10th year should lay waste.
Okay. Now, let's make the reference file.
You know I have the spirit
of prophecy, of heaven, so that he to the assembly cried, No longer toil in leaguer of yon walls. Some other counsel let your hearts devise, some stratagem to help the host and us. For here but yesterday I saw a sign, a falcon chased a dove, and she hard pressed entered a cleft of the rock, and chafing, he tarried long time hard by that rift, but she abode in covert. Nursing still his wrath, he hid him in a bush. Forth darted she, in folly deeming him afar. He swooped, and to the hapless dove dealt wretched death. Therefore by force I think essay, it's spelled or pronounced like essay when you're talking about it as a verb.
Essay.
Yep. Therefore by force essay we not to smite Troy, but let cunning stratagem avail. He spake, but no man's wit might find a way to escape their grievous travail, as they sought to find a remedy till Laertes' son discerned it of his wisdom, and he spake. So that's Odysseus. Now we're going to pull our Odysseus file. My Odysseus sounds different than any that I've ever heard before, because he is this really strong guy, but I kind of made him sound more like a trickster guy, which he also is. I think it's a fun aspect. So confidence probably closer.
Not a whit I dread thy spear now. But my grievous hurt with pain still vexeth me. The wound I gat in fighting for these arms and their slain lord.
So yeah, it's like more of like a salesman. Friend, if in high honor held of the heavenly ones, if doomed it be indeed that Priam's burg by guile must fall before the war-worn Greeks, a great horse let us fashion, in the which our mightiest shall take ambush. Let the host burn all their tents, and sail from hence away to Tenedos, so that the Trojans from their towers gazing shall stream forth fearless to the plain. Let some brave man, unknown of any in Troy, with a stout heart, abide without the horse, crouching beneath its shadow, who shall say, Achaea's lords of might, exceeding fain safe to win home, made this their offering for safe return. An image to appease the wrath of Pallas, for her image stolen from Troy. And to this story shall he stand, how long soever they question him, until though never so relentless they believe, and drag it, their own doom within the town. Then shall war's signal unto us be given, to them at sea by sudden flash of torch, to the ambush by the cry, Come forth the horse. when unsuspecting sleep the sons of Troy. So you can see, because I'm not recording this right now, it's just a practice run. Sometimes I'm just redoing on the fly, just redoing lines to see if I can do them in a way that fits better. And what's interesting about this, too, I do practice runs for all my narrations, but especially for this, where it's really hard to... These are written in verse, and I'm kind of like putting it in my own cadence, and that sort of sight reading, you have to have said it through your mouth once at least, just to kind of wrap your head around the way the lines are said. Sons of Troy. He spake, and all men praised him. Most of all extolled him Calchas, that such marvelous guile he put into the Achaeans' hearts, to be for them assurance of triumph. But for Troy, ruin. And to those battle-lords he cried. Here we go with Calchas again.
Hear me,
ye
sons of
battle-biding
battle-biding
Greeks.
You know
I have. Let your hearts seek none other stratagem. Friends, to war-strong Odysseus' reed give ear. His wise thought shall not miss accomplishment. Yea, our desire even now the gods fulfill. Hark, for new tokens come from the unseen. Lo, there on high crash through the firmament Zeus's thunder and lightning. See where birds to right dart past and scream with long resounding cry. Go to, none more in endless leaguer of Troy linger we. Hard necessity fills the foe with desperate courage that makes cowards brave. For then are men most dangerous, when they stake their lives in utter recklessness of death, as battle now the oldest sons of Troy, all round their burg, mad with the lust of fight. Oh, this is Neoptolemus, okay. So Neoptolemus and Philoctetes arrived late at the war, and I think that's why they're both kind of like not into this plan of sneaking into Troy. They want to keep fighting.
Would I might meet him living yet,
O king.
That so himself.
But cried Achilles' battle-eager son, Calchas, brave men meet face to face their foes, who skulk behind their walls and fight from towers, are nidderings, hearts palsied with base fear. Hence with all thought of wile and stratagem, the great war travail of the spear beseems true heroes. Best in battle are the brave. Okay, we gotta go back to Odysseus here.
Not a wit. Aias. The unbridled tongue. Not a...
Okay. But answer made him Laertes' seed. Bold-hearted child of Aulus Aeacus' son, this as beseems a hero princely and brave, dauntlessly trusting in thy strength, thou sayest. Yet thine invincible sire's unquailing might availed not to smite Priam's wealthy burg, nor we for all our travail. Nay, with speed, as counselleth Calchas, go we to the ships, and fashion we the horse by Epeus' hands, who in the woodwright's craft is chiefest far of Argives, for Athena taught his law. That's the first mention of Epeus. I'm pretty sure he's going to have a line or two in there. Then, I like the idea, too, that for my Odysseus, he basically never gets flustered. He's always, like, in control of the situation. Almost like mocking the person that he's talking to, or like patronizing. Yeah, I like the way we have him. Then all their mightiest men gave ear to him, save twain, fierce-hearted Neoptolemus and Philoctetes mighty-souled. For these still were insatiate for the bitter fray, still longed for turmoil for the fight. They bade their own folk bear against that giant wall what things soever for war's assaults avail, in hope to lay that stately fortress low, seeing heaven's decrees had brought them both to war. Yea, they had haply accomplished all their will, but from the sky Zeus showed his wrath. He shook the earth beneath their feet, and all the air shuddered, as down before those heroes twain he hurled his thunderbolt. Wide echoes crashed through all Dardania, unto fear straightway turned were their bold hearts. They forgat their might, and Calchas' counsels grudgingly obeyed. So with the Argives came they to the ships, in reverence for the seer who spake from Zeus or Phoebus, and they obeyed him utterly. So that was Neoptolemus and Philoctetes' very short-lived attempt to keep fighting. Didn't work so well. Who spake from Zeus or Phoebus, and they obeyed him utterly. What time round splendor kindled heavens the stars from east to west far flashing wheel, and when man doth forget his toil, and when man doth forget his toil, in that still hour Athena left the high mansions of the blest, clothed in her shape of a maiden tender-fleshed, and came to the ships in host. Over the head of brave Epeus stood she in his dream, and bade him build a horse of tree. Herself would labor in his labor. Herself would labor in his labor. And bade him build a horse of tree. Herself would labor in his labor, and herself stand by his side, to the work in kindling him. To the work in kindling him. Hearing the goddess' word, with a glad laugh leapt he from careless sleep. Right well he knew the immortal one celestial. Now his heart could hold no thought beside. His mind was fixed upon the wondrous work, and through his soul marched marshaled. Gotta check on that. So I have the original text of the book on another window here. Through his soul marshaled. That's what I got. All right. And through his soul marshaled each device of craftsmanship. When rose the dawn and thrust back kindly night to Erebus. Now, very soon we're going to be checking on a lot of names here. To Erebus, and through the firmament streamed glad glory. Then Epeus told his dream to eager Argives, all he saw and heard. To eager Argives, all he saw and heard. And hearkening joyed they with exceeding joy. Straightway to tall tressed Ida's leafy glades the sons of Atreus sent swift messengers. These lay the axe unto the forest pines, and hewed the great trees. To their smiting rang the echoing glens. On those far-stretching hills, all bare of undergrowth with the high peaks rose. Open their glades were, not as in times past haunted of beasts. There dry the tree trunks rose wooing the winds. Even these the Achaeans hewed with axes, and in haste they bare them down from those shagged mountains. From those shagged mountain heights to Hellespont's shores. Strained with a strenuous spirit at the work, young men and mules, and all the people toiled, each at his task obeying Epeus' hest. For with the keen steel some were hewing beams, some measuring planks, and some with axes lopped branches away from the trunks as yet unsawn. Each wrought at his several work. Epeus first fashioned the feet of that great horse of wood. The belly next he shaped, and over this molded the back and the great loins behind, the throat in front, and ridged the towering neck with waving mane. The crested head he wrought, the streaming tail, the ears, the lucent eyes, all that of lifelike horses have. So grew like a live thing that more than human work. For a god gave to a man that wondrous craft. and in 3 days, by palace decree, finished was all. Rejoiced thereat the host of Argos, marveling how the wood expressed mettle and speed of foot, yea, seemed to neigh. Godlike Epeus then uplifted hands to Pallas, and for that huge horse he prayed. We gotta come up with some... He has literally one line. We have to come up with a voice for him now. And he prayed, "Hear, great-souled goddess, bless thine horse and me. Bless thine horse and me." No. "Bless thine horse and me." He spake. Athena, rich in counsel, heard, and made his work a marvel to all men which saw or heard its fame in days to be. But while the Danaans over Epeus' work joyed, and their routed foes within the walls tarried, and shrank from death and pitiless doom, then when imperious Zeus far from the gods had gone to ocean's streams and Tethys caves, strife rose between the immortals. Heart with heart was set at variance, riding on the blasts of winds, from heaven to earth they swooped. The air crashed round them. Lightning down by Xanthus stream arrayed they stood against each other. These for the Achaeans, for the Trojans those. And all their souls were thrilled with lust of war. There gathered too the lords of the wide sea. These in their wrath were eager to destroy the horse of guile and all the ships, and those fair Ilium. But all contriving fate held them therefrom, and turned their hearts to strife against each other. Ares to the fray rose first, and on Athena rushed. Thereat fell each on other, clashed around their limbs the golden arms celestial as they charged. Round them the wide sea thundered, the dark earth quaked neath immortal feet. Rang from them all far-pealing battle shouts. That awful cry rolled up to the broad-arching heaven, and down even to Hades' fathomless abyss. Trembled the Titans there in their depths of gloom. Ida's long ridges sighed, sobbed clamorous streams of ever-flowing rivers, groaned ravines far furrowed, Argive ships and Priam's towers. Yet men feared not, for not they knew of all that strife by heaven's decree. Then her high peaks the gods' hands wrenched from Ida's crest, and hurled against each other. Oh, okay, so this should still be bloodthirsty mode. Far furrowed, Argive ships and Priam's towers. Yet men feared not, for not they knew of all that strife by heaven's decree. Then her high peaks the gods' hands wrenched from Ida's crest, and hurled against each other. But like crumbling sand shivered they fell round those invincible limbs, shattered to small dust. But the mind of Zeus, at the utmost verge of earth, was ware of all. Straight left he the ocean's stream, and to wide heaven ascended, charioted upon the winds. The east, the north, the west wind, and the south. For Iris, rainbow-plumed, led neath the yoke of his eternal car that stormy team, the car which Time the immortal framed for him of adamant, with never-wearying hands. So came he to Olympus' giant ridge. His wrath shook all the firmament, as crashed from east to west his thunders. Lightnings gleamed, as thick and fast his thunderbolts poured to earth, and flamed the limitless welkin. Terror fell upon the hearts of those immortals, quaked the limbs of all, aye, deathless though they were. Then Themis, trembling for them, swift as thought, leapt down through the clouds, and came with speed to them. For in the strife she only had no part, and stood between the fighters. And she cried. Themis is the goddess of justice, I think? Oh, Jesus. Themis, Greek Goddess of justice, yeah. Wisdom and good counsel. Okay. Kind of like Athena, I guess, but a little different. And she cried. I feel like she should be more... Forbear the conflict. Yeah, it's too cartoony. Forbear the conflict. Oh, when Zeus is wroth, it ill beseems that everlasting gods should fight for men's sake, creatures of a day. Else shall ye all be suddenly destroyed. For Zeus will tear up all the hills and hurl upon you. Sons nor daughters will he spare, but bury neath one ruin of shattered earth all. No escape shall ye find hence. I don't like that. No escape shall ye find hence to light, in horror of darkness poisoned evermore. Dreading Zeus's menace, they gave heed to her, from strife refrained, and cast away their wrath, and were made one in peace and amity. Some heavenward soared, some plunged into sea, on earth stayed some. Amid the Achaean host spake in his subtlety Laertes' son. Wow, that's a whiplash-inducing transition there. Okay, we're back to Odysseus here.
Not a whit I dread thy spear
now. The screen is kind of bright. I'm going to dim it a little bit. Laertes' son. O valorous-hearted lords of the Argive host, now prove in time of need what men ye be, how passing strong, how flawless brave. The hour is this for desperate emprise. Is that a real word? An adventurous, daring, or chivalric enterprise. This desperate emprise. Now with hearts heroic, enter ye yon carven horse, so to attain the goal of this stern war. For better it is by stratagem and craft now to destroy this city, for whose sake hither we came, and still are suffering many afflictions far from our own land. Come then, and let your hearts be stout and strong, for he who in stress of fight hath turned to bay, and snatched a desperate courage from despair, oft thought the weaker slays a mightier foe. Wait, so this is... Oh, yeah. For he who in stress of fight hath turned to bay, and snatched a desperate courage from despair, oft, though weaker, slays a mightier foe. For courage, which is all men's glory, makes the heart great. Come then, set the ambush, ye which be our mightiest, and the rest shall go to Tenedos' hallowed burg, and there abide until our foes have hailed within their walls us with the horse, as deeming that they bring a gift unto Tritonus. Some brave man, one whom the Trojans know not, yet we lack, to harden his heart as steel, and to abide nearby the horse. Let that man bear in mind heedfully whatsoever I said erewhile, and let none other thought be in his heart, lest to the foe our counsel be revealed. Then when all others feared, a man far famed made answer. Sinon, marked of destiny to bring the great work to accomplishment. Therefore with worship all men looked on him, the loyal of heart, as in the midst he spake. Odysseus, and all ye Achaean chiefs, this work for which we crave will I perform. Yea, though they torture me, though into fire living they thrust me. For mine heart is fixed not to escape, but die by hands of foes, except I crown with glory your desire. Stoutly he spake, right glad the Argives were. And one said, How the gods have given today high courage to this man! He hath not been heretofore valiant, Heaven is kindling him by the Trojans' ruin. Kindling him to be the Trojans' ruin, but to us salvation. Now full soon, I trow, we reach the goal of this grievous war, so long unseen. So a voice murmured mid the Achaean host. Then, to stir up the foes, Nestor cried. Okay, gotta get Nestor in here.
Hither to me,
Thrasymedes, war-renowned.
Help me to thrust back. None would name.
Okay. Nestor cried. Now is the time, dear sons, for courage and strength. Now do the gods bring nigh the end of toil. Bring nigh the end of toil. Now give they victory to our longing hands. Come, bravely enter ye this cavernous horse, for high renown attendeth courage high. Oh, that my limbs were mighty as of old, when Aeson? I think it's Aeson. Aeson. Because that's Jason, son of Aeson. Of old, when Aeson's son for heroes called, to man's swift Argo, one of the heroes foremost I would gladly have entered her, but I think it's Peleus? But Peleus the king withheld me in my own despite. Ah me, but now the burden of years, oh nay, as I were young into the horse, oh nay, as I were young, into the horse will I fearlessly, glory and strength shall courage give. Answered him golden-haired Achilles' son.
Would I might meet him living yet, O king. Nestor, in wisdom art thou chief of men, but cruel age hath caught thee in his grip. No more thy strength may match thy gallant will. Therefore thou needs must unto Tenedos strand. We will take ambush, we the youths, of strife insatiate still, as thou, old sire, dost bid. Then strode the son of Neleus to his side, and kissed his hands, and kissed the head of him who offered himself, and kissed the head of him... Wait, what? Oh yeah. And kissed the head of him who offered thus himself, the first of all to enter that huge horse, being peril fain, and bade the elder of days abide without. Then to the battle eager spake the old. Back to Nestor. Hither to me,
Thrasymedes. Thy father's son art thou, Achilles' might and chivalrous speech be here. Oh, sure am I that by thine hands the Argives shall destroy the stately city of Priam. At the last, after long travail, glory shall be ours. Ours after long tribulation and war, toil and tribulation of war. The gods have laid tribulation at men's feet, but happiness far off, and toil between. Therefore for men full easy is the path to ruin, and the path to fame is hard, where feet must press right on through painful toil. He spake, replied Achilles' glorious son. Would I might, old sire, as thine heart trusteth, be it vouchsafed in answer to our prayers, for best were this. But if the gods will otherwise, be it so. Aye, gladlier would I fall in glory and fight than flee from Troy, bowed neath a load of shame. Then in his sire's celestial arms he arrayed his shoulders, and with speed in harness sheathed stood the most mighty heroes, in whose healers was dauntless spirit. Tell ye, queens of song, now man by man, the names of all that passed into the cavernous horse, for ye inspired my soul with all my song, long ere my cheek grew dark with manhood's beard, what time I fed my goodly sheep on Smyrna's pasture lea. Pasture lea. From Hermes. From Hermes thrice so far as one may hear a man shout, by the fane of Artemis, in the Deliverer's grove upon a hill, neither exceeding low nor passing high. So for this part, we got to do a phonetic thing. Into that cavernous horse Achilles' son, strong Menelaus, Odysseus, Sthenelus, godlike Diomedes, Philoctetes, Menestheus. And I just put them in parentheses so that I can read it better. Anticlus. And basically what this does is I'm not seeing the name, I'm seeing the pronunciation of the name so that I can kind of work through it more naturally and not have to pause to keep looking up names. Thoas. Polypedes. Is it Polypedes? Polypedes. Aias, we know that. Eurypylus. Confusing because there's a Eurypylus on the Trojan side and the Greek side. Thrasymedes. Okay. We know all those ones. We're going to put Thrasymedes, I guess. Idomeneus. And you can see that I already know how to pronounce these ones, but any of the ones that I'm like not 100% sure about, I'm putting in because who knows on the day when I'm really recording the narration if I will know the pronunciation or not. Meriones. Podalirius. You would think he would stay back to heal people. Eurymachus. Okay. Teucer the godlike, fierce Ialmenus. Ialmenus. I've never even heard of that guy before this part. Thalpius? These are the ones that I don't really... We're going to need the phonetic pronunciations here. It's literally listing a huge portion of the guys who go into the horse. And that, obviously, we're not going to be able to say like a million names all in a row. So this is book 12-1, horse people. Antimachus. This being... The reason I have all these pronunciations, I'm actually building a pronunciation dictionary for myself, as is necessary for any audiobook. But for this one, I'm not working with an author who can give me the pronunciations. So I'm literally researching like how the Greeks would have said it, how, what the definition is on Wikipedia, like phonetic pronunciations of the ancient Greek version. Like I have to go through and literally painstakingly come up with pronunciations of hundreds of Greek names and cities and proper nouns and stuff. And then before I start narrating any chapter, I already have those pronunciations built out for the chapter. And that's why I'm able to just instantly grab these for this part. It's a whole process, but it's been a lot of fun. Amphimachus, this guy. And it doesn't matter if we get them all like instantly in one take, but we just don't want to have to keep searching. We want to have to pause as few times as possible. We want to make it a little easier on ourselves. This guy is Agapenor Acamus. This is probably the most intense single section of proper nouns in the whole story because it's just a list of names. Philius. Okay, here we go. Neither exceeding low nor passing high. Into that cavernous horse Achilles' son first entered. Strong Menelaus followed then. Odysseus, Sthenelus, godlike Diomedes, Philoctetes and Menestheus. Godlike Diomedes, Philoctetes and Menestheus. Anticlus, Thoas and Polypedes, golden-haired. Aias, Eurypylus, godlike Thrasymedes, Idomeneus, Meriones, far famous twain, Podalirius of spears, Eurymachus, Teucer the godlike, fierce Ialmenus, Thalpius, Antimachus, Leontius staunch, Eumelus, and Euryalus, fair as a god, Amphimachus, Demophoon. I gotta look that one up. Demophoon. Yeah, I guess that's right. Amphimachus, Demophoon, Agapenor, Ochamus, Meges, stalwart Phyleus' son. Yea, more, even all their chiefest entered in, so many as that cavernous horse could hold. Godlike Epeus last of all passed in, the fashioner of the horse. In his breast lay the secret of the opening of its doors, and of their closing. Therefore last of all he entered, and he drew the ladders up, whereby they clomb. Clomb is an antiquated version of climb, past tense of climb. Clomb. I gotta write that down. Very few times I'll actually write words in my pronunciation dictionary. C-L-O-M-B. Clomb. Clomb word. Rhymes with poem. And the fun thing is that because I made this already, this giant pronunciation guide for myself in order to narrate the book, the text edition is also going to include this pronunciation guide for anybody reading it on the page. Because it is something that I always want when I'm reading one of these stories, is like, how am I supposed to pronounce these names? So we already have it, so I figured I might as well include it. Therefore, last of all, he entered, and he drew the ladders up whereby they clomb. Then made he all secure, and set himself beside the bolt. So all in silence sat twixt victory and death. Very good. But the rest fired the tents, wherein erewhile they slept, and sailed the wide sea in their ships. Two mighty-hearted captains ordered these, Nestor and Agamemnon, lord of spears. Fain had they also enter that great horse, but all the host withheld them, bidding stay with them a shipboard, ordering their array. For men far better work the works of war when their kings oversee them. Therefore these abode without, albeit mighty men. So came they swiftly unto Tenedos shore, and dropped the anchor stones. Then leapt in haste forth of the ships, and silent waited there, keen watching, till the signal torch should flash. But nigh the foe were in the horse, and now looked they for death. Oh yeah. But nigh the foe were they in the horse, and now looked they for death, and now to smite the town, and on their hopes and fears uprose the dawn. I don't like that part. Keen watching the signal torch should flash. But nigh the foe were they in the horse, and now looked they for death, and now to smite the town, and on their hopes and fears uprose the dawn. Then marked the Trojans upon Hellespont's strand the smoke upleaping yet through air. No more saw they the ships which brought them from Greece destruction dire. With joy to the shore they ran, but armed them first, for fear still haunted them. Then marked they that fair carven horse, and stood marvelling round, for a mighty work was there. A hapless seeming man thereby they spied. Sinon. Is Sinon, right? Sinon. And this one, that one questioned him, touching the Danaans, as in a great ring they compassed him, and with unangry words first questioned, then with terrible threatenings. Then tortured they that man of guileful soul long time unceasing. Firm as a rock abode the unquivering limbs, the unconquerable will. His ears, his nose at last they shore away, in every wise tormenting him, until he should declare the truth, whither were gone the Danaans and their ships, what thing the horse concealed within it. He had armed his mind with resolution, and of outrage foul recked not. His soul endured their cruel stripes, yea, in the bitter torment of the fire, for strong endurance it to him Hera breathed, and still he told them the same guileful tale. All right, let me take a drink of water real quick. The same guileful tale. The Argives and their ships flee over sea, weary of tribulation and endless war. This horse by Calchas' counsel fashioned they for wise Athena, to propitiate her stern wrath for that guardian image stolen from Troy. And by Odysseus' prompting I was marked for slaughter, to be sacrificed to the sea powers, beside the moaning waves, to win them safe return. But their intent I marked, and ere they spilt the drops of wine, and sprinkled hallowed meal upon mine head, swiftly I fled, and by the help of heaven I flung me down, clasping the horse's feet. And they, sore loath, perforce must leave me there, dreading Zeus's daughter mighty souled. Dreading Zeus's daughter mighty souled. Zeus's daughter? Mighty... No, it's too much. Zeus's daughter mighty souled. In subtlety so he spake, his soul untamed by pain, for a brave man's part is to endure to the uttermost. And of the Trojans some believed him, others for a wily knave held him, of whose mind was... See, this guy's pronunciation I don't like, Laocoon, but I guess that's how it is. Of whose mind was Laocoon. Wisely he spake. A deadly fraud is this, he said, devised by the Achaean chiefs, and cried to all straightway to... Oh, wow, this is written like a novel. Okay. A deadly fraud is this, he said, devised by the Achaean chiefs, and cried to all straightway to burn the horse, and know if aught within its timbers lurked. Yea, and they had obeyed him, and had scaped destruction. But Athena, fiercely wroth with him, the Trojans and their city, shook earth's deep foundations neath Laocoon's feet. Straight terror fell on him, and trembling bowed the knees of the presumptuous. Round his head horror of darkness poured. A sharp pang thrilled his eyelids, swam his eyes beneath his brows. His eyeballs, stabbed with bitter anguish, throbbed even from the roots, and rolled in frenzy of pain. Clear through his brain the bitter torment pierced even to the filmy inner veil thereof. Now bloodshot were his eyes, now ghastly green. Anon with rheum they ran. Rheum? Rheum. Anon with rheum they ran, as pours a stream down a rugged crag, with thawing snow made turbid. Turbid. As a man distraught he seemed. All things he saw showed double, and he groaned fearfully. Yet he ceased not to exhort the men of Troy, and recked not of his pain. Then did the goddess strike him utterly blind, stared his fixed eyeballs white from pits of blood, and all folk groaned for pity of their friend, and dread of the prey-giver, lest he had sinned in folly against her. And his mind was thus warped to destruction, yea, lest on themselves like judgment should be visited, to avenge the outrage done to hapless Sinon's flesh, whereby they hoped to wring the truth from him. So led they him in friendly wise to Troy, pitying him at the last. Then gathered all, and over that huge horse and over that huge horse hastily cast a rope, and over that huge horse hastily cast a rope, and made it fast above, for under its feet smooth wooden rollers had Epeus laid. That, dragged by Trojan hands, laid, that by Trojan hands it might glide on into their fortress. One and all they hailed with multitudinous tug and strain, as when down to the sea young men sore laboring drag a ship, hard crushed the stubborn rollers groan, as sliding with weird shrieks the keel descends into the sea surge, the keel descends into the sea surge, so that host with toil dragged up into their city their own doom, Epeus' work. Dragged into their city their own doom, Epeus' work, Epeus' work. With great festoons of flowers they hung it, and their own heads did they wreathe, while answering each other pealed the flutes. Grimly Io laughed, seeing the end of that dire war. Hera rejoiced on high. Glad was Athena. Glad was Athena. When the Trojans came unto their city, brake they down the walls, their city's coronal, that the horse of death might be led in. Troy's daughters greeted it with shouts of salutation, marveling all gazed at the mighty work, where lurked their doom. So the Trojan horse, left on the shore, they are bringing it into the city. Everybody knows that part. I assume, because I didn't, most people probably don't know how that happened or what the circumstances were surrounding it. So hopefully you find it of interest. But still Laocoon ceased not to exhort his countrymen to burn the horse with fire. They would not hear, for dread of the gods' wrath. But then a yet more hideous punishment Athena visited on his hapless sons. A cave there was, beneath a rugged cliff exceeding high, unscalable, wherein dwelt fearful monsters of the deadly brood of Typhon. In the rock clefts of the isle Calydna, that looks Troyward from the sea. Calydna. Then stirred she up the strength of serpents twain, and summoned them to Troy. By her uprouse they shook the island, as with earthquake. Roared the sea, the waves disparted as they came. Onward they swept with fearful flickering tongues. Shuddered the very monsters of the deep. Xanthus and Simois' daughters moaned aloud. The river nymphs. I always say nymphs. Nymphs. It's hard for me to say. The river nymphs. The Cyprian queen looked down in anguish from Olympus. Swiftly they came whither the goddess sped them, with grim jaws whetting their deadly fangs. On his hapless sons sprang they. All Trojans panic-stricken fled, seeing those fearsome dragons in their town. No man, though never so dauntless theretofore, dared tarry. Ghastly dread laid hold on all, shrinking in horror from the monsters. Screamed the women, yea, the mother forgat her child, fear-frenzied as she fled. All Troy became one shriek of fleers, one huddle of jostling limbs. The streets were choked with cowering fugitives. Alone was left Laocoon with his sons, for death's doom and the goddess chained their feet. Then, even as from destruction shrank the lads, those deadly fangs had seized and ravined up the twain, outstretching to their sightless sire agonized hands. No power to help had he. Trojans far off looked on from every side, weeping, all dazed, and having now fulfilled upon the Trojans' palace awful hest, those monsters vanished neath the earth, and still stands their memorial, where into the fane they entered of Apollo, in Pergamus the hallowed. There before the sons of Troy gathered, and reared a cenotaph, for those who miserably had perished. Over it their father from his blind eyes rained the tears. Over the empty tomb their mother shrieked, boding the while yet worse things, wailing over the ruin wrought by the folly of her Lord, dreading the anger of the blessed ones. As when around her void nest in a brake, in sorest anguish moans the nightingale, whose fledglings, ere they learn their plaintive song, a hideous serpent's fangs have done to death. And I gotta check this. And bootless. It doesn't seem like a word that would describe nightingales. Done to death. And left the mother anguish, endless woe, and bootless crying round her desolate home. So groaned she for her children's wretched death. So moaned she over the void tomb, and her pangs were. So groaned she for her children's wretched death. So moaned she over the void tomb, and her pangs were sharpened by her Lord's plight stricken blind. While she for children and for husband moaned, these slain he of the sun's light portionless, the Trojans to the immortals sacrificed, pouring the wine. Their hearts beat high with hope to escape the weary stress of woeful war. Howbeit the victims burned not, and the flames died out, as though neath heavy hissing rain, and writhed the smoke wreaths blood red, and the thighs quivering from crumbling altars fell to earth. Drink offerings turned to blood, God's statues wept, and temple walls dripped gore. Along them rolled echoes of groaning out of depths unseen, and all the long walls shuddered. From the towers came quick, sharp sounds, like cries of men in pain, and weirdly shrieking of themselves slid back the gatebolts. Screaming desolation wailed the birds of night. Above that God-built burg a mist palled every star, and yet no cloud was in the flashing heavens. By Phoebus' fane withered the bays that erst were lush and green. Wolves and foul-feeding jackals came and howled within the gates. Aye, other signs untold appeared, portending woe to Dardanus' sons and Troy. Yet no fear touched the Trojans' hearts, who saw all through the town those portents dire. Fate crazed them all, that midst their revelling, slain by their foes, they might fill up their doom. Crazy. So the Apollo, who's been like on the side of the Trojans the whole time, he's like sending every single sign that he could possibly send to try and warn them that they're in trouble, but they're not listening. Except, as we're about to find out, one heart was steadfast, and one soul clear-eyed, Cassandra. Never her words were unfulfilled, yet was their utter truth by fate's decree, ever as idle wind in the hearer's ears, that no bar to Troy's ruin might be set. She saw those evil portents all through Troy conspiring to one end. Loud rang her cry, as roars a lioness mid the brakes, a hunter has stabbed or shot, whereat her heart maddens, and down the long hills rolls her roar, and her might waxes tenfold. So with heart aflame with prophecy came she from So with heart aflame with prophecy came she forth her bower. What is a bower? A pleasant shady place under trees or climbing plants in a garden or wood.
Bower.
Huh. So with heart aflame with prophecy came she forth her bower. Over her snowy shoulders tossed her hair, streaming far down, and wildly blazed her eyes. Her neck writhed like a sapling in the wind shaken, as moaned and shrieked that noble maid. So this is our first appearance of Cassandra, who is cursed by the gods to always be correct in her prophecies, but never be listened to by anyone who hears them. So I guess she should sound kind of, crazy, or like she's crying wolf or something, because that's what they think she's doing. Shrieked that noble maid. Oh, wretches! No, not like that. Oh, wretches! Wretches! Into the land the darkness now we are passing, for all round us full of fire and blood, and dismal moan the city is. Everywhere portents of calamity gods show. Destruction yawns before our feet. Fools, ye know not your doom. Still ye rejoice with one consent in madness, who to Troy have brought the Argive host where ruin lurks. Oh, ye believe not me, though never so loud I cry. The Erinyes and the ruthless fates for Helen's espousals madly wroth, through Troy dart on wild wings. And ye are banqueting there in your last feast, on meats befouled with gore, when now your feet are on the path of ghosts. Something like that. Then cried a scoffing voice an ominous word. Why doth a raving tongue of evil speech, daughter of Priam, make thy lips to cry words empty as wind? No maiden modestly with purity veils thee. Thou art compassed round with ruinous madness. Therefore all men scorn thee, babbler. Hence thine evil bodings speak to the Argives and thyself. For thee doth wait anguish and shame yet bitterer than befell presumptuous Laocoon. Shame it were in folly to destroy the immortal's gift. Yeah, so that guy right there is basically saying, like, did somebody say something? Like, you're an idiot, we don't believe you. Like, this guy is saying the thing they always say when Cassandra tries to tell a prophecy. She also attempted several times to prevent the Trojan War, and was similar from ever starting, years before it started, but was not listened to in that situation either. I kind of like our version of Cassandra. She's like very scatterbrained, like maybe it's possible you could believe people not listening to her. The immortal's gift. So scoffed a Trojan. Others in like sort cried shame on her, and said she spake but lies, saying that ruin and fate's heavy stroke were hard at hand. They knew not their own doom, and mocked and thrust her back from that huge horse, for fain she was to smite its beams apart, or burn with ravening fire. She snatched a brand of blazing pine wood from the hearth, and ran in fury. In the other hand she bare a two-edged halberd. On that horse of doom she rushed, to cause the Trojans to behold with their own eyes the ambush hidden there. But straightway from her hands they plucked and flung afar the fire and steel, and careless turned to the feast, for darkened over them their last night. That's too much. For darkened over them their last night. Within the horse the Argives joyed to hear the uproar of Troy's feasters setting at naught Cassandra, but they marveled that she knew so well the Achaeans' purpose and device. I like that we're lowering our voice when we go inside the horse, because the Greeks have to be quiet inside the horse. That's a fun one. I'm going to keep that for the real narration. As mid the hills a furious pantheress, which from the steading hounds and shepherd folk drive with fierce rush, with savage heart turns back even in departing, galled albeit by darts. So from the great horse fled she, anguish racked for Troy, for all the ruin she foreknew. Ladies and gents, that's the chapter. So, we're in a good spot. We only needed one phonetic section that we meticulously laid out so that this was our practice run. As you can tell, I don't have a recording microphone in front of me. I don't use this mic for the streams when I make an audiobook. So practice run's done. It sounds good. We have some new character voices that I came up with. And for anybody who is interested in Greek mythology or is, wanted a little sample of what I was working on, that's pretty close to a narration, to hearing for yourself a narration of Posthomerica, the book that I'm working on. So obviously the full version has better sound quality because I do it on my audiobook mic, and it also is fully edited, so there's no parts where I retake stuff, of course. This audiobook's coming out on Audible and Apple Books, as well as Amazon. And the book version is going to be on Amazon exclusively. You'll be able to find both of those, info about both of those once they're released. They're currently not out yet, obviously. So I'll keep you guys posted on that. But if you want to find out more details about me as an audiobook narrator or see some of my other books, you can type !Troy in the chat, which will also give you a little blurb about what this project is. I suppose you can't type Troy because it's on emote chat right now. So I will type Troy and you can read it or click the link if you so choose. Look forward to that. We're also illustrating every single chapter, which we've been doing live on stream also. We've been editing stuff on stream, and all of these archives of the making of this book will be free to watch for anybody who is interested in the process after the fact on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/thevoiceofnick. I'll see you guys next time. Thank you for joining the show. Bye-bye.